my name is Elizabeth and this is Awakened Spirit. I'm going to be doing a video series on the elements and working with the elements in terms of magic as well. So I have done an introduction to the elements blog post, which I will link below, and I am going to be doing blog posts to accompany the videos as well that will go into a little bit more detail. The videos themselves will be more reserved for the magical side of things, and this is in conjunction with my witchcraft videos. So I want to kick things off with the element of earth, and earth for me is probably the element that I connect to the easiest and the most. Being a green witch, it's very obvious, as you can see, why I would be connected to the element of earth, since earth is all about the plants and the natural world. So the element of earth itself is seen most of the time as the universal archetype of the goddess, or the feminine, or the great mother, whatever you want to refer to it as. And you know, we can see this in terms of the planet Earth itself is most often called Mother Earth or Gaia, for example, among many other terms, obviously. So we can see the element of earth in things such as, you know, caves, forests, fields, gardens. You know, it's in the natural world. It's the physical natural world, the foundations. You can also see this represented in the minerals as well, things like crystals. These are all representations of the earth element. So earth is most often associated with growth, fertility, abundance, prosperity, grounding and stability, and obviously the material world. So I want to go into, just very briefly, touch on a few points that are very key to know in terms of magical practices. So within Wicca and witchcraft, some people you may see or you may read or hear about people creating or casting a circle and calling in the elements, and this is when you are formally acknowledging the four elements. Some people do bring in the fifth element of spirit or ether, and this is when we're formally acknowledging them, because obviously the elements are ever present, they're always around us, but when we cast a circle, create a sacred space or call in the elements, we are formally acknowledging these elements and inviting them into our space. Now, the reason why I wanted to just touch base on this quickly, I'm not going to be going into casting circles or calling in the elements or anything like that. This is specifically just for the actual element magic itself, but this is important because there are certain correspondences that come with the earth element itself that you will need to understand to make more sense of why it's used in magical practices. So traditionally we see the element of earth as the direction of north, and some people do say in the southern hemisphere that this should be reversed and be the opposite, so the direction of the south. I personally, even though I am in the southern hemisphere, I still find that I like to keep to the traditional directions of the elements, so I still call it north. In terms of phases, the new moon phase is most likely seen as the earth element, and the time of the day or night is seen as midnight. Colour associations, you can usually see this as typically green. Now I'm going to, when I do mention this, obviously there is many different colours in the colour spectrum that can be referenced, and whatever works for you is probably best, but this is just the widely accepted colours that you will see in terms of the elements itself. Now, the magical tool that people use as a representation of earth is usually seen as the pentacle, and you'll see a lot of witches do wear the symbol of the pentacle, which actually is symbolizing the four elements, and then the fifth one being spirit. And this is why you do see the pentacle so often in Wicca and witchcraft. If you were going to set up an altar, for example, and you wanted to bring in the element of earth onto that one, if you don't have a pentacle or you didn't want to do something large, you can use things like a bowl of salt as a representation. Crystals are a really good representation of earth. You know, even something like a house plant is a great representation, or a jar of sand or dirt or soil. You know, this is all really good representations of the earth element itself. Now, in terms of astrology, we do know that all of our star signs are put under a category of specific elemental signs. So in terms of the earth element, that is Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus. All of the elements are also governed in the spiritual traditions and magical traditions by elementals, and these are spiritual beings that work with the element itself. So the elementals that govern the earth element are the gnomes. And gnomes are, you can do a lot of research on the elementals, and I do suggest people to do their own research because there's a wealth of information that you're going to find. But most of the time you're going to see gnomes are keepers of the mineral world. They like to understand how the building blocks of life work, and things like alchemy and magic in general is very closely linked to them because it is about that aspects of the building blocks of life. And they are very practical, down to earth, obviously industrious, critical. They're very single-minded and patient. They do operate at a lower frequency to humans, so when we do call in the elementals, it is very important to understand this. It's very key, I believe, in terms of dealing with elementals, to do so through meditation, so you can access their realm instead of trying to pull them into ours, because they don't operate on the same plane of existence as us. This is something that does need its own video, its own information, so I will go into that at a later time. Okay, so now you've had a little bit of a crash course on the earth element itself. I want to go into more detail on connecting with the element and creating magic with the element. Now, for myself, when I create magic and work magical things in my life, I do it on a day-to-day basis and incorporate it into my everyday life. This is not to say that I don't formally do spells or manifesting, and I do on occasion do that when I specifically want to draw something in, and I have done a very formal aspect of that where I will do a casting a circle and calling in the elements and acknowledging the elements. But for this, I want to go into a more easier way of incorporating earth magic into your day-to-day life and ways that you can honor the element itself. So as earth is represented as the material aspect, it's no surprise that the physical body is one of the best ways of representing the earth. And the reason why I say this is because the physical body is our vessel for our spirit. So it's very symbolic in that aspect of the earth being the vessel that we live on, and gives us our nourishment and our ability to survive. So the most key thing I do find, which is probably going to seem very boring to everyone, but caring for the physical body is one of the best ways that you can actually honor the element of earth. And this is important through things like exercise and nourishment, through food and minerals, things like supplements and that kind of thing. So making sure that you're actually looking after your body. Movement is so important as well, so this is why I do recommend exercise. Things like yoga, extremely beneficial because it does help ground the energy and it helps you be present in the moment of honoring the body. One of my key ways of actually working with the body though is actually through the nourishment side of things. And the reason why I say this is because being a green witch, and being someone who's very keen in terms of gardening, I do have my own garden, and it's it's a mixture of magical ingredients as well as just simple everyday edible ingredients, so nourishment is a very key thing for me. When I say nourishment, I do mean cooking. Cooking is a very, very great way to connect to the element of earth and nature in general, and this is through growing your own produce and then producing a meal from that as well. And I do feel that you have a greater respect for the element of earth and for nature in general. When you grow something yourself, you see how long it takes to grow, you nurture it, and then you freshly pick it and then bring it into the kitchen and produce a super healthy and delicious meal from that. even the most simplest of things, like an omelette, can be absolutely amazing if you have grown the produce yourself. So obviously this leads into gardening itself. Now you don't need to be a complete green thumb like I am and grow all your own produce or anything like that. You know, this can be as simple as having a house plant and nurturing a house plant. Gardening can be large scale, small scale, depending on the size of the place that you're in, but I do suggest working with gardening in general is a really great way to connect to that element, especially if you grow something from seed. Planting something from seed, one of the big things that I love to do in terms of creating magic is when I have a new idea that I want to nurture, or something I want to bring into my life that I'm going to physically work towards. I love to use a seed as a symbol of that and plant the seed and then nurture it and watch it grow. And in the process, with intention, when I'm planting the seed, it's inviting that energy into my life to help the goal, the object, whatever it is that I desire, also bloom in my life as well. So the symbolic aspect of gardening is extremely beneficial, even if it means that, you know, if you're a complete brown thumb and you don't want to do gardening at all, you can join a community garden, you can, you know, visit farm gates if you've got local farms, or even go for a drive through harvest season especially, and harvest the fruit and vegetables or whatever it might be from the farms themselves, just to give you that connection to earth. So this leads into my next suggestion, and that is hiking or walking through nature. You know, nature reserves are extremely beneficial if you can get out to places. One of my favourite places to go to is the local forest. It takes me about 35 minutes to drive there from where I live, but it's so worth the drive, and it's just the best energy around there. It's the most amazing feeling and the best way that I can ground my energy and just help clear my head as well. But if you don't have nature reserves near you, even going for a walk around the block, to a local park, anything like that is going to be highly beneficial because you're outside. And I do suggest in these points, if you're deliberately going out to connect with earth, don't use things like headphones or anything like that to distract yourself, to just immerse yourself in the moment and the sounds, the smells, the feeling of everything around you. So this leads into the next thing, and you may have heard of this because it is becoming quite popular, especially on social media, and that's the act of earthing. And it's a very simple thing. All it is walking barefoot on the earth, on the grass, or wherever you might be, and allowing yourself to connect to the energy that is actually in the earth itself. This has actually been scientifically studied because of the negative ions, I believe, within the earth itself that do interact with our personal energy fields as well, and it helps to create calmness and to help create a emotional stability as well. So it's really good for things like anxiety and depression, and stress as well. It helps to calm the body down. Another way you can do this is through tree magic, and that's connecting with the trees through touch or sitting against them and meditating. I love to do this when I do go to the forest. I will frequently touch the trees and just connect my energy to them. A lot of the time I like to sit there with my back against the tree as well and go into a little bit of a meditation and connect myself to the trees. This is really good if you're wanting to focus on your lower chakras as well, like your root chakra, sacral chakra and solar plexus chakra. When you're doing these meditations, imagining your own physical energy roots connecting into the ground with the tree roots as well. It's a really great way to help ground your energy and to connect to the energy of earth as well. You can also work with crystals and their magic, which are really beneficial to connect to the earth. Crystals themselves obviously have their own frequencies. Researching the types of crystals depending on the types of energy that you want to work with, but crystals are such a great way to connect to earth. I mean, you can stick one in your pocket and carry it with you during the day if you need to, and crystals are very affordable too. Finally, the one that a lot of people are going to say is the least fun to connect to is physical work with cleaning the home and organising the home, since the home is also one of our foundations. Just like we need to look after the body, which is our connection to the earth itself, we also need to look after the home because we spend so much of our time there. So if you're wanting to connect to that foundation, the elements of the earth, I do suggest going through and doing that spring clean of the home or physically cleaning. The act of cleaning is such a simple thing that your mind switches off as well, so it gives you the ability to just relax and to calm down, and in the same process you're cleansing your environment. So these are some of the simple everyday things that I incorporate into my life that is a way to connect to the element of earth. I hope these resonate for you as well, and let me know if you're going to try anything out, if you already do some of these things in your life as well. It all comes down to intention and mindfulness. So if you switch your things, I mean, when you clean your house next time, instead of looking at it as a chore, looking at it as something like this is a way to connect to the earth. The same thing with going through exercise, you're connecting with the earth. So it's all about that intention that comes from it. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button below. Make sure you turn the notifications on because this will be a series. I'll be doing water next, and the element of water and connecting to water. Once I do have my blog post that's up for the element of earth, I will be linking that down below as well. I will put the link for the introduction to the elements in there. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.